Hello, bonjour, Alberta. Did you know that at least 238,000 people speak Français in Alberta? And those numbers just keep on growing? Oui, oui, c'est vrai, it's true. And thanks to Shaw TV Community Access Programming, we get to reach out to everyone to let you know all about special people, places, events, and activities happening right here in this great province, in both English and en français. That's right, mes amis. We begin the first part of our program in English, and then we repeat it en français. So stay with us. Restez à l'écoute.
Welcome to Hello, Bonjour, Alberta. I'm Anne Boiteau, and this is the only bilingual talk show of its kind in Canada, produced in Calgary by Shaw Community Access since 2012. And before we start talking with our guest tonight, I will give you a little bit of background into our story. Because this is the 150th anniversary of Canada this year, the federal government sponsored certain historians across the country to dig up stories on Canadians that people really have not heard about, but who have made a real difference in Canada. And one of these historian was Professor Rodin from University of Concordia, who found a lost story about a Chinese immigrant called Yee Clun, who immigrated to Canada in 1902. And tonight we have the pleasure of talking with his daughter, one of his daughters, Anne Yee Marr. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, did you know that your dad was famous or going to be famous?
No.
No?
No.
Okay, and your dad, the lost story about your dad is about his restaurant in the 1920s,
Yes.
before you were born.
That's right.
Before you were born. And in Regina, Saskatchewan, he emigrated in Regina, Saskatchewan.
Yes.
And he wanted to hire white women back then to work in his restaurant. And the bylaws in Regina forbid him from doing so, right?
Right.
So he fought the municipal government and ended up winning his case. It went all the way to King's Bench back then, right?
Yes.
Okay, so did you know that story?
No, I didn't.
You didn't. You
No.
just learned about it, eh?
Yeah.
Ah. And so your dad actually came to Canada to work in a household, right? At the
That's
beginning
right.
when he came in?
Yes, that's right.
He was born in 1881, I think.
Yes.
Okay, and he came to Canada in 1902, so he was quite young,
Yes.
22 or something like that.
21.
Oh,
he was,
21 even. That's quite
he came
young.
at the age of 21 to Canada.
Jeez. And then he started a family here
Yes.
in Regina,
Yeah.
right? You were born in Regina?
Yes, I was.
Okay, a little bit after he had started his restaurant business and fought this. Big family?
Big family. There's family of 6 of us.
6 of you.
Yes.
And one adopted son
Right.
in that family.
That's right.
So when you were 3 years old, your dad decided that it was important to go back to China and live.
Yes.
So where was the village in China?
And oh gosh, I forgot my name now.
In what province? do you remember?
Quanto.
Oh, in
Yeah,
Quantum.
yeah.
Okay. So you, all the children and your mom, you all went back to that village
Yes.
and stayed there for a few years, 8, 9 years, something like that?
8 years.
8 years. And then what happened?
Well, during that 8 years, when we went back to China, we went back to my dad's home village in 1933. Then we moved to Canton City. So we lived there for about 1936, when the war just beginning with Japan. So my mom and all of us went back to the village again. And then in 1938, my mom took us out to Hong Kong.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then your dad said, your dad had already gone back to
Oh
Canada.
yes, my
right?
dad's
Like that?
in here in Canada. Yes,
Okay.
yeah, he went back earlier.
Okay.
Yeah, and left us all back in China.
Okay, and then when he could have you come over, in 1940, I think you
Yeah,
came over, right?
Yes, we left Hong Kong in 1940 in December, and we landed in Vancouver in 1941 January.
January.
In Vancouver.
You came over on the last
Boat.
passenger boat.
Yes.
On the Empress
Oh,
Asia.
Asia,
right?
yes.
And then that ship turned into a troops kind of
yeah, that's right.
ship
That's
for
right, yeah.
after that.
Yes.
That was the last
That's right.
journey to across the ocean.
Yes.
Wow. And then you stayed in Vancouver for a while?
No. When we landed, we my dad's had some friend. We stayed for about maybe a couple of weeks, and then we took the train back to Regina.
Ah, okay. And when your dad first came to Canada, it cost for a Chinese immigrant, it was $100 he had to pay back
That's
then.
right. They call head tax.
A head tax.
Yes.
Yes. Very different, eh? Canada was not as open back then
No.
to immigration
No.
as it is now.
No.
They didn't quite like to have Chinese people come over, right?
That's right.
And then when your mom and you guys came over, the fee had gone up to $500, I think, back then. Eh? No?
At that time, I think my mom and dad. My mom came over with my dad when he got married in China, and at that time they changed the rule, and it was 500. But when my dad came before, it was only 100 because they wanted to discourage Chinese people come over to Canada.
Yes, because by the time you came back with your mom, there were about, I think, 2,500 Chinese people across the prairie provinces, something like that.
Yeah.
It had grown
It has grown, yes.
quite a bit, the
Yes, it
Chinese
has,
population.
yes.
Do you remember when you came back to Canada? What did you think? It's cold.
Yes, we landed in Vancouver. First time I see snow. Yeah,
Oh,
yes,
yes.
and it was cold.
Yes, you were about 10 or 11
That's
years
right.
old,
That's
something
right.
like that.
Yes.
And then your dad decided to go back to Regina and settle.
Well, yeah,
Right?
that was his business. That's where he
was a
settled.
businessman
Yeah,
by
that's
then,
where
eh?
he settled when he first came to Canada. He settled in Regina, and then he took us back and left us at home, back home in China. Then he came back with my brother. So, but when the war broke out, with a Second World War, so my dad decided to send us back to Canada. So that's how we got back here.
Yes. It was tough, eh? Those times must have been
Well, we didn't see too much of it, you know, because it's just the beginning. So we were fortunate, so we got back here in time.
Yes. And did your mom or dad ever talk about, you know, his fight for for white women to work in his restaurant?
No,
Or
I wasn't born then, but then from what I hear from people say, yes. Well, it's the first time a Chinese man win the case.
won a case
in this
in
instant.
court in Canada.
Yeah, in this instant, yes.
Yes.
So it's very unusual, I guess, you know.
Yes, absolutely. He became quite well known in Regina.
He is very well known
He's-
in Regina because he like in the Chinese community, I think he usually helped people because he speak English a little more than the rest. So there are times they probably need his help. So he's sort of like an interpreter
with
with the Chinese
between
community,
the Chinese
yeah.
community and the English community.
To help them out in case you know
Yeah.
they need help.
Yeah, they in what I read about your dad. Sometimes his name was changed.
Yeah, because sometimes it's hard to pronounce, and it's hard for them to spell the name right. So he has a few names that different spelling.
Different spelling of his name.
That's right. So
Okay.
he landed up using as Yee Clun. That's how any kind of document he signed, it's Yee Clun.
Okay, and your last name is Yee, and is
No,
it inverted?
No,
for
no.
him?
I use Yee Clun too when we were going to school.
Ah,
But
okay.
then, you know, we just shorten it, that's all.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, to make
Because
it
Yee
easier.
Clun, Yee is a surname, Clun is his name.
Clun was his first name.
Yeah.
It's inverted.
Yeah, they come, Chinese always the surname first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Yes, it was quite funny the way that English people sort of remembered his name. They
Yeah.
went with pronunciation more than anything else.
Right.
Okay, and so everybody's settled in Regina, but your sisters now and brothers left Regina.
We
and
all left the Regina.
Everybody left Regina to go to
After
Vancouver.
the war in 1947, Dad decided that we moved to Vancouver, but actually in his heart he liked to go back to China.
Yes.
But then the communists came.
It was too hard to go back to
we
China.
couldn't go back. My dad
Yeah.
decided we'll stay. So we stayed in Vancouver. That was our new home.
Very interesting story and about a really daring man. So thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Oh, thank
and
you.
for all of you, please
Yeah.
stay with us en français.